Welcome everybody, thank you for being here. Please stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We've got a fairly hefty agenda, but I promised I was going to keep people here too late, so we'll see how I do. We usually start off with the public comment period. Is anybody new here? I don't think so, but everybody knows the rules. 15 minutes. The public comment period. You're allowed to address the board about anything. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And before you speak, stand and state your name and address for the record. Any public comment? Doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll move right on to the agenda. First up, I asked Bob Wallabin, the hospital CEO, to come and give us an update on where things stand right now as far as what the hospital is doing, requesting a new certificate of need, and the transition toward not-for-profit status, et cetera, et cetera. So Bob, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and as Supervisor Gray indicated, I did promise to come back periodically and give you an update as to where we are. So it may not appear as though much is being done, but a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So here's where we are. We have engaged, because this is a fairly complex legal process, we have engaged a law firm, Denton's, which is a national law firm, and the managing partner that's going to be working with us on all the legal issues is Bill Owens. He's a member of that firm and is coordinating all the firm's resources to help us with the various components of the conversion process. The first part of that process is the development of a certificate of need application, which we are in the process of pulling information together in order to fill out the forms and submit it to the Department of Health. And we anticipate getting that initial application in sometime around the end of April, and then that'll start a clock at the Department of Health in terms of a public review and comment on the certificate of need application. The second aspect of the conversion is related to the valuation analysis, and again through Denton's assistance, they have engaged a firm, HCC, which is a national healthcare valuation firm out of St. Louis, to start the process of looking at the hospital and its assets to determine what the value may be, so we can then discuss with the town the value and how that's going to be handled in the conversion. And then finally, we were notified last week, which was covered in the newspaper, of the award of $5.8 million from the Department of Health. That is a part of a multi-part grant application that we had submitted in October. A portion of that grant that we sent in was to fund the conversion expenses, and we have not yet received the $5.8 million, and we are seeking clarification from the Department of Health to make sure that we understand what they granted us the money for. So that's where we are in terms of an update. Obviously, there are a lot of other things going on at the same time, but those are the major issues. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming. But the $5.8 million that you got, it seems that from reading the article, several articles, that it almost seems like all of the hospitals are getting whatever debt that they had. Like, that's pretty close to what your debt is it not?
That's how yeah, that's pretty close to the debt. That's correct.
And Ogdensburg was
right.
14.
That's correct. Yep.
So is that? Do you think that could be that? What the purpose of that grant?
So let me just clarify my comments. Our grant we submitted was for $21 million. We had 5 things in there. One of which was retirement of debt. Happens to be about that amount of money that we had identified. There were 4 other items in that grant, and so when the grant came out, it was actually listed on the state website as debt and refinancing. We just want to make sure that that's what the state gave us the money to do. that there wasn't some snafu on somebody's part, and they actually intended to give us the money to do one of the other 4 parts, because the other 4 parts of our original application were the debt refinancing, we had conversion costs, we had an ER project, we had an inpatient project, and we had a major IT project. So that's what comprised the 21 million. And again, we just want to make sure, because when the state gives you money, you want to make sure you use it the way they intended. So we think we'll have that cleared up in pretty short order, probably in the next couple of weeks. My understanding now, it is for the debt repayments. That's, you know, unless there's something I don't understand, that's.
Do you anticipate getting more grant money for the other 4?
Well, we have other grants in. We
Is
submitted.
that all part of one, or is it?
No, there's multiple grants. The state health department administers multiple grant processes through the year, and we've submitted in several different grant cycles. So, you know, and they haven't awarded all of them yet. So I'm not trying to be evasive about the 5.8 million. Again, we just want to make sure. And you're absolutely correct. In the newspaper article, Claxton's was listed as debt refinancing, ours was listed, several others were listed. But elsewhere in the state, the grants were awarded, and they had multiple definitions when they notified the hospital. So again, we want to make sure, you know, because the last thing we want to do is commit the money to something and then have the state come back and say, well, that wasn't really what we intended you to do with it.
So I fully understand. The grant application you submitted was for several different amounts in one application, and you got this returned back, and you think it's for part of it, but you want to.
Right, we just want to make sure. Yep, okay. That's exactly right.
One of the, I'll speak for myself, I would hope that, we'll use it for the intended purpose, obviously, but I would hope that one of the first things we would look at would be the debt. To alleviate the town from that responsibility. When the hospital privatizes, then it won't be there. So that debt will no longer be there. You won't have to worry about it. We won't have to worry about it. How do we do this now that you're no longer a municipal hospital?
I would agree with your thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
The other thing that I had a phone conference with Mr. Owens and with Bob a few weeks ago, right after they were hired, and we talked a little bit about the valuation process. And I said, is that, you know, is it going to be, you know, one price for the building, one price for the contents, the buildings? And he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, what I understood him to say was that the valuation company will come up with a value for the business as a whole. So what is Massena Memorial Hospital in a snapshot in time worth at that point in time? And that is what the valuation company will do. So that would include, I assume, everything. Buildings, equipment, different locations, et cetera, et cetera.
The business side.
Yeah, the business itself. If you were going to sell Massena Hospital tomorrow, which, you know, I think the conversion process is more of a transfer, but it's something I've been asking for a long time, right? We need to know what this asset is worth. It's a town asset, what is its value? And that's exactly what this company that Denton and Stafford, et cetera, that the law firm have hired, that's exactly what they'll do. They'll come up with a price for the value of Massena Memorial Hospital, the business, as it stands today.
Well, are we going to verify that that's, or is there more than one? I mean, most of the time when you do an evaluation, you do 3 and pick the middle one or something along that.
So there's been some discussion before, or suggestion before, that maybe we should hire our own evaluation company. I'm not opposed to that. We just need to determine how do we do that, how do we pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's really up to this board whether we have a second evaluation or not, or a third if you want 3. I don't know that I want to go through the process for 3 of them, but 2 certainly would seem to make sense. But again, I don't know what the rest of you are thinking.
Not being completed, do you have a ballpark figure of what it costs to do that?
What the firm which specializes in valuations of this nature, healthcare valuations, $85,000. That's what we're going to pay for this analysis.
Bob, with the movement towards conversion and with the announcement of the grant, do you think that's going to positively affect the recruitment and retention of professionals, physicians, nurses?
Well, there's actually this past year, we recruited several physicians, 3. Actually, if you include some other physicians that come to us by virtue of contracts that companies have with the hospital, it's more like 6. And we are currently talking to several others. In fact, I expect commitments this week from 2 physicians, which would be a major improvement for us. So there is a lot of positive, despite the fact that it's a complicated process of conversion, there already is a lot of positive buzz, so to speak. So I think it's a positive.
Buzz over possibility of the affiliations.
That as well, yep. Mm-hmm. Which is another process that's the conversations are going on at various levels at the same time. So it's a lot, as I said, on the outside looking in, it may not look like there's a lot of ripples on the water, but in fact there is a lot of work going on underneath the water line at this point.
About employees in general, bargaining unit employees, middle management employees, has there been any employees leaving to find work elsewhere?
There's always employees coming and going, so that happens as a natural course of the business. Our turnover rate, which we monitor every year, is a little bit higher than it was prior year, but nothing dramatically different.
Are you having trouble filling any positions? I've been watching the website, watching the jobs that are up. I understand there's a shortage of lab techs.
Well,
positions there.
we have had one position, one employee notify us that he's leaving the laboratory, and that job's posted, and we'll be looking to replace that individual.
There's 4 there now, right? One ahead of the lab and 3 lab techs, I think. There's 4 positions for.
The head of the lab's going to retire. He's given us his retirement notice.
Do you think that the difference in wages between other hospitals will impede in employing other employees such as lab technicians? I know that some of the other hospitals are $10, $12 an hour more, basically 50% more than the wages at Massena.
Your information may be outdated, because I can tell you it's $20.
Difference?
One hospital is paying $20 more. They decided to raise their rates $20 an hour.
So do we do exit interviews if someone leaves to take another job? I've been hearing for a while that, the effort to privatize is going to cost us employees, so we're going to leave because they're no longer public. But is it possible that we're also losing employees who are simply chasing the money, like most employees I think would?
I know one lab tech is chasing the money. He's going to Alexandria Bay for a dramatic increase in pay.
So not through another public institution.
I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why employees leave an employer.
So what type of retention factor will be in Massena if you're paying, I think it's probably around mid-20s for a lab tech, and they're paying $41, $43 elsewhere? I mean, 20 miles down the road, 40 miles down the road, what's going to hold the employees there? What's going to retain them? What's going to entice them to come?
You'll certainly recognize that as management, in fact, the head of management, I am precluded under the labor laws from commenting about some of the questions you're asking me about, because that would be a violation of the tips.
Exactly.
Threats, intimidate, promise, or survey. I can't answer your question. So please don't put me in that position.
Okay, I'll rephrase my question. In your presentation for salaries, you had a 2% increase per year.
We have budgeted, we have a budgeted. Yeah.
2% per year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 50 cents on $25, $26. So that's $26.50 compared to 42. I don't know how you're going to entice employees or retain employees if the wages aren't current to area hospitals. What's going to hold them? I know right now what's holding them here. It's a retirement that's holding them here.
Well, I thought that was holding them here, but you're saying that's not what's holding them here. So what is it?
Oh no, that's why they're leaving. My impression is.
Well, it can't be both ways, Sam. They're either leaving to chase the pension or they're leaving to chase the dollars. So That's what, I guess that's where I get confused.
If you don't have a state retirement system here, and you go by wages and benefits, you have a choice. If you have just retirement here, you have no choice. This is where you're gonna stay, because you're gonna stay here for the retirement system. So now you have to be competitive with other businesses. This business is paying, he says $20 an hour. I thought it was more like $12 or $16 an hour more. It's up to $20 per hour more. So now, Massena will need to raise their wages to match somewhere close to that $40 an hour for a lab technician. So you have to increase your wages 60, 70% rather than pay 10 or 15% for a retirement system.
But I thought, I thought that the argument was that the pension system was attracting.
It's a retention factor.
I was told it was keeping people here. And
Well, it
if
was.
went private,
Well,
people would be leaving.
The
But that's
town
not the
board
case.
voted to look into privatization, so that's the first step moving forward to
Yes.
privatization and doing away with the state retirement system. So now you have to have another retention factor here, to keep those employees here, or attract good quality employees, because if a hospital 20 miles down the road is gonna pay $20 an hour more, you're not gonna keep the employees here if there's a job opening there,
If it's as a private hospital.
as a private hospital,
I
exactly.
don't disagree with that part. But again, the argument has been heretofore is that we can't go look at not-for-profit status because that will cost us employees who are gonna leave to keep their pensions intact. But apparently people are leaving regardless of the pension, because they're chasing the money.
Well, they're gonna lose their pension if we go forward with this sale of the hospital, okay?
We can argue
this after, let's not hold Bob up or Patricia
Right,
up,
we can't
let's
have-
take
we
care of
can't
this
have-
business, we'll
right.
talk about
My
that
point
later.
is, we can't have it both ways, so.
So the short answer is our turnover is up a little bit from prior year, but not substantially different. And people leave every employer for different reasons. And yes, we do exit interviews. Not all employees consent to an exit interview, but we try and exit interview as many as possible.
So go back to the $5.8 million in debt. What are the terms of that? I think I've asked you this before, I'd like an update on that. What does that cost the hospital per year for that $5.8 million that's out alone?
If we were to retire that debt, that would drop our expenses by about $800,000 a year. We have two payments. We have a payment in January and a payment in June.
The other, one more question. You stated that some of the money of the $5.8 million was for conversion. What portion of that was for conversion?
No. Our original grant application was $21.8 million. There were 5 components in that request. One was debt retirement. One was conversion costs. One was an ED project, expansion project. One was an inpatient expansion or renovation project. And one was a replacement of the IT system. So that's what I was referring to there. The amount that we put in the application for debt retirement happens to be exactly $5.8 million. So that's why I'm concluding it's probably that, but we want to make absolutely certain.
But I think that you stated that some of that money was for the conversion process.
No.
That's what I read in the paper. You just said it, I just wrote it down.
No, I'm telling you, the $21.8 million that we requested was 5 things. $5.8 million for debt retirement, $1.2 million for conversion costs, $6.2 million for an emergency room expansion project, $2.3 million for renovation of the inpatient rooms, and $6.1 million for replacement of the IT system. I think if you add those up, it comes pretty close to $21.8 million.
Okay. So none of the $5.8 million was for conversion process, that's what you're saying right now?
No, what we listed 5.8 in that grant application for debt retirement.
Okay.
And we just want to make sure we confirm that that's what the state awarded it to us for.
What is the timing on the evaluation, do you think, Bob?
Evaluation of hospitals is a complicated
Sure.
analysis, and I'm told that it may take upwards of 5 to 6 months.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you,
Very
Bob.
much. Appreciate it, Bob. See you back here another time. Okay, and I can't remember what it stands for, she can probably tell you. The trust that was formed by the federal government after General Motors, the old General Motors was dissolved, went into bankruptcy and receivership, bankruptcy, whatever it was. And Racer was formed and as a corporation, a trust rather, to take over all of the General Motors property in the United States, the old General Motors property. And they obviously took over this property and are now in the process of working with the EPA to fund a cleanup. It is scheduled for cleanup sometime in the next few months. So without further ado, Patricia Stitzley is here representing Racer Trust, and she's going to give us an update on where we're at, where the process is at right now, and where we're headed, I guess.
Great, thank you. So RACER stands for, because I had to get my business card out, because I didn't know there was going to be a quiz. Revitalizing Auto Communities Environmental Response Trust. So, so again, we'll be starting our 5th year, March 31st of 2011. RACER was formed, so it's almost been 5 years. And the supervisor is correct, is when General Motors went bankrupt, and they reorganized, and they put all their assets, of course, in the bankruptcy court. And so when they reorganized, they purchased back the assets they wanted, and they left in bankruptcy court 89 locations in 14 states, about 350 pieces of property. And so those 14 states, including the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, got together, and a settlement agreement was developed, and that created the RACER Trust. And we became the sole owners of those pieces of property. At that time, 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, we were the 3rd largest holder of industrial property in the United States. It was huge. And so, the Trust's mission is twofold. It is to clean up those properties. About 2/3 of them had their own distinct environmental budget. The Massena property was the largest at $120+ million. The second one is to reposition those properties for redevelopment, sale, and economic growth and development in those communities. And I'm on the redevelopment side. We do that by working with the communities, and I think we work really closely with Supervisor Gray, and we work with the North Country Redevelopment Task Force to try to determine what the economic development vision is for the community. And based on that, we market the site. When we have someone that's interested in the property, we have 6 criteria that we have to consider. It's all part of the settlement agreement that we have to consider when we're evaluating the property. That includes the purchase price. We have a responsibility to get the best price for the property. They were all went through an evaluation, and we had a quite regular evaluation of our property for the property costs to make sure that we're still, listing them as consistent with market rates across the country. We also look at the number of jobs that were created, because again, we're looking for a redevelopment story. We're looking to bring in jobs and redevelopment in the community. We also look at whether or not that entity is going to interfere in our environmental costs or increase our environmental costs. One of the unique things about RACER is even though we sell a piece of property, we're still responsible for the legacy environmental issues. And so if somebody's interested in our property, we want to make sure they're not going to come in and increase our environmental costs, because we have this finite amount of dollars. We also look at any other benefits that that entity is going to bring to the community, reduction of blight, increased tax base, or any other kind of economic development benefits of that end user. We look at the reputation of the buyer. Our trustee says, Elliot Laws is our trustee, and he says we have one opportunity to get this right. And so we do everything we can to make sure that that entity is capable to do what they say they're going to do. We look at the needs and wishes of the community, and again, how we do that in different ways. It depends on the community. How I do it here is I participate in the North Country Task Force. I participate on we have this BOA grant steering committee. I meet regularly with Supervisor Gray and with David Courier and with Tom Sullivan and with Tony Arquette, to just kind of make sure that we're all still partners in redevelopment and marketing of that property, and that we all are getting information on a timely basis. We also look at the feasibility of the project. Again, we only have one chance to get this right. And so, we're not interested in somebody that wants to come in and hold the property, to speculate on property values later on. We're not interested in somebody who comes in, who has this you know, this black box that's gonna create 10,000 jobs, you know, that are gonna pay $200,000 each. You know, we look at those really closely, and, we're interested in real offers. I look at it as making soup, right? So you look at all of these different criteria, and you throw them all in the pot and mix it up, and it comes out as the bowl of soup that's perfect for the community of Massena. And so that's how I look at that when you look at the 6 criteria. As the supervisor says, we have actively been remediating the property. If you drive by there, every time I drive by, I'm amazed at what it looks like. From when 5 years ago, when it looked like something from like an apocalyptic, you know, horror show with the buildings and everything, to now it looks like a pad-ready, you know, piece of land that can draw meaningful economic development offers. You know, 5 years is really a short time for that to happen, and Ann Kelly, who's the EPA lead, and Brendan Mullen, who's our cleanup manager, have done a wonderful job of working to facilitate that cleanup in such a short time. So we're really pleased with that. We do expect, our calendar is that cleanup will be complete by 2017. In the meantime, we continue to market the property. We market it in a variety of ways. One of the things that we found that we think is beneficial is, of course, the proximity to the international bridge. And so we've done a lot of marketing of the property in Canada. We've done a lot of marketing of the property internationally and with companies in the United States. But we do think that, you know, there's a good opportunity for a Canadian firm that's looking to have a presence in the United States, particularly with the increase in Buy American content on some of the things that are coming down the pike. That so those Canadian firms, transportation firms, are needing to, you know, have increased American content in order to, you know, sell their stuff here. They're going to be looking to come over here to, you know, establish a place in the United States. We've had a number of people, entities look at the property. We enter into confidentiality agreements with each one of those, and so I will not go into specifics of who they are, but they range from manufacturing to agriculture. They run the gamut, and we take them through their cases, through the 6 criteria. A lot of times, you know, the funding and the financing is always a determinant. You know, if you can't demonstrate to us that you can get finance and you have the financing to, you know, complete this project, then our site is not the site for you. You know, we continue to market. We've got a number of things I think are good qualities and good attributes on the site that make it very attractive. You know, we've got beautiful rail spurs there. You know, we've got great utilities. We've got the you know, the wonderful hydropower that's here, and all of those are very attractive. What we're seeing is, you know, as the economy is taking up and as the auto industry is taking up, that you know, a lot of companies are coming back to the United States, where they used to have a lot of the auto suppliers and stuff outside. They're coming back, and we're seeing that shift back into the United States, and that is really, as a lot of the top tier properties have already been purchased, our properties are seeing an uptick in the interest, and we think that that's gonna trickle down to the Racer Trust property here in Massena as well. And so we want to be thoughtful, again, within the context of the 6 criteria about the offers that we evaluate and look at as they come. We work very closely with Patrick Kelly at the IDA. I was just in Albany meeting with Empire State and you know, talking to the legislative folks there about some of the issues that we think may be barriers to redevelopment. And so we look at all of those as partners to help us market this property for a successful economic development story. And you know, I will continue to do that very vigorously. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them if I can.
So you're reaching out to potential people looking at the site, but they're also coming to you?
Yes.
Through themselves and IDA and BDC,
Right,
you know, all of those agencies,
Right.
the alphabets?
yeah, all the alphabet,
It's
yeah, they're all involved,
okay.
yeah.
So they're all
But yeah,
involved.
they are, I mean, we get calls, because our website's very active, and so as we go to, there's a big conference called the Site Selector Guild Conference, and that conference is this group of folk who, their sole job is to find locations for companies. That's all they do. And so we've gone there the last 4 years, we've had a booth there. And so when we go there, the purpose is to, you know, basically hawk our property and educate them about the Racer Trust and educate them about the property that we have.
Hopefully, as you near completion, it's getting there.
It is. I'm excited.
Things pick up.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's typically how you market, is through trade shows and.
Yes, yes,
and-
yeah.
And websites.
Right, and we're on the Empire State, they have a database. Like I said, we get a lot of, we get calls from Patrick Kelly and his group, Rich Williams and those guys, when they're, Empire State will send out saying, we've got an entity who needs X number of acres and X number of location, and so we'll get a call from Rich or Patrick saying, you know, we got this, and it might be a good fit for Racer, can you help us put together the response? And we're like, no problem, and so we put together the response to ship it back to the Empire State.
Obviously, you know, it would have to be a very, very big enterprise to fill that area. You said you are willing to piecemeal it?
Yes, sir. A good example, we own Buick City in Flint. It's 400+ acres there. We are in active cleanup there, and we have sold 20+ acres to a manufacturer there. The first manufacturing facility in Flint in a decade. And they bought 20 acres and they're leasing 20+ acres, so 50 acres approximately have been set aside, and we continue to market the other pieces of property.
Good.
We don't have to have total cleanup in order to market and sell a piece. If
Right.
someone comes to us tomorrow and says they need 40 acres out there at our Massena property, we're gonna find them the best 40 acres there is that will allow us to continue to fulfill our environmental responsibilities, but also allow them to fulfill whatever responsibilities they're planning on doing there, subject to the 6 criteria.
Yeah, I've attended some of your meetings.
Yes.
The one issue though with subdividing that property is the infrastructure that's there. The water, unfortunately, the water treatment facility was, you know, dismantled, which I understand was a fine facility. So to sell a small portion like that rather than the whole thing, have somebody come in and develop the whole thing with infrastructure, it might be quite difficult to.
Yeah, and that is a challenge. The lack of potable water to the site is a challenge to redevelopment, for sure. The wastewater treatment facility could not be saved. You know, we initially thought it might be because that would have been an asset, but it you know, it could not be saved, and so that had to go. That's one of the reasons why we continue to talk to the supervisor and mayor and Tom is how do we again how do we get water there? You know, do they, so there are a variety of things. If you kind of split it up, you know, we might need to look at, you know, extending the water from this community out there, or if it's one big facility, they may just want to get a permit from the state to draw water from the lake. So, I mean, from a river, excuse me. So there are a number of options. It all just depends on what the end use is for the site.
So there's money available to run a water line, you know?
Not from us. We would have to look at other funding sources. And that's part of what I do. It's part of what I do, and I work with the communities is are there federal dollars, are there state dollars that may help us do that? The money that we have for the Massena site has to be used for environmental cleanup. It can't be, you know, we don't have the dollars. The settlement agreement does not allow us to do anything else. And so I have to, and we do this as part of our relationship with our racer communities. You know, because of the unique way we were formed, we had a unique relationship with the federal government and with federal government agencies. And so, you know, at one point when they had the auto task force was specifically formed to provide like a liaison to the federal departments. But all the task forces know more, but we still maintain those relationships.
Are you looking at sources to get that water out there now, or is this something that you'll do once you get a?
I look at everything. I mean, it's not something that takes, 2 months or 3 months, and so, you always want to start planning and start
So
looking.
you're actively looking now for
I
sources?
look at everything, yeah.
One of the reasons I asked that is that the border is looking for water to be brought out that way. And if you're looking for water, and they're looking for water, and we run a line like that, and we need a line like this, now's the time to do it, not run 2 different lines out there, so.
And that's all a part of the conversations that, we have, with the mayor and with the supervisor and with the state and, with the feds. We want to make sure that we're all working together so that whatever happens, is something that benefits everybody.
GM obviously had a lot of acres when they were running. What do you project, how many acres do you project will be available to market after the cleanup is done?
On the north end, we own, we own,
Off the top of your head,
no, I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
now, you said you took all the GM sites.
We took all of them that they left in the bankruptcy table.
And do you know how many that was?
There was 89 locations in 14 states, about 350 pieces of, individual pieces of property.
Has any of them been remarketed other than Flint?
We sold 50, we had 50 property transactions that have resulted in 10,000 jobs pledged, $1.2 billion in investment.
Good.
Some of those were in New York, right? You guys have other properties?
We have property in Tonawanda. We have a piece of property in Syracuse. It's called Syracuse Industrial Park right now, but it's full. We have tenants there. But I gotta tell you, however, there was a feeling about the auto bailout and the creation of racer trust. There are jobs being pledged. There are properties being sold, put back to use. Dollars put back into those communities that have been impacted by the closing of GM.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Can you give me a rough idea, Pat, Patricia, of how many confidentiality agreements you signed and how many might still be active?
Oh, we probably have, I would say we're close to 1,000.
I guess I'm gonna go back to this.
All right, I'm like, less than 100.
Okay.
I'd have to get the exact
Sure,
number, and I can get that for
okay,
you.
yeah, so a few dozen.
But we are, if that, how we do this, if we get someone that's interested, the first thing we do is we refer them to our website. Our website's very complete, and it talks about all of our property. We have a marketing brochure for the Massena site that was put together with input from the community. We have information on how we do business, our 6 criteria, all that stuff's on our website. So we first direct people there. Look at that. We do business a little different than most holders of industrial property because first of all, we have dollars for cleanup. Second of all, we just aren't, we don't do fire sales. We're not a liquidator. And so we're not going to sell a piece of property just to sell a piece of property. And so sometimes that falls people off right there because they think we're going to come in and get it for $1. And that's not what we do. We have dollars to hold property, and we would do that to make sure it met those 6 criteria. So after that, then if they're still interested, we have conversations with them to try to find out what's their end use, what are you thinking, what's the jobs, what's the process, and just real superficial conversations. Based on that, then we do invite them to enter into a confidentiality agreement so that we can go into more detail. Through that confidentiality agreement, we share the price of the property. Through that confidentiality agreement, we delve into their books, their financial books. We delve into their process. A lot of times some people say they have proprietary processes, and so we through that confidentiality agreement, we talk about that process and where you've done it. Has it been, if it's a new company, where is it replicated? What have you done? And so the confidentiality agreement really sets the stage for a very, very deeper dive into a discussion. And a lot of people fall off the wayside there. They can't get financing, the process, the black box is just a black box,
So that's where we really, and then, you know, get to the next stage, and they put in it's called a letter of intent. And it basically says, we're interested in the property, this is how we're gonna meet the 6 criteria, this is the purchase price that we're willing to pay, and it's a legal document. And there's some give and take there, because there is give and take on the purchase price, but I will tell you, we will never not close a transaction because of purchase price. If it's a good process, if it's gonna create jobs, if it's gonna bring, you know, economic development to the community, we will work with them. Then, after that, you know, we get past that, it's a purchase and sale agreement, and we start negotiating the purchase and sale agreement, and so that's really the process that we go to work with someone who's interested in our real estate property. So, and it's been as short as 30 days. We have an entity in, we have property in Lordstown, Ohio, and I think they do the Chevy Cruise up there. And we had someone come in who wanted, the property was right next to that facility, and they, you know, GM has got this new rule where their suppliers have to be 25 miles, within 25 miles of their manufacturing plant. And this person needed to be there to be up and running for the Chevy Cruise, and we closed in 30 days. So we can be quick if we need to.
Anything else?
How does our, kind of a tough question to ask because maybe some favoritism because you're here or whatever, but where is our property? Is it like, is it here or is it down here? I mean, as far as being attractive to a lot of businesses.
We consider this piece of property a prime piece of property, and I shared with you the document that I brought in, a marketing brochure that I have, and it does say Razor Trust prime property, and Massena is at the top.
Okay.
So we do consider this a prime piece of property. We consider, you know, excuse me, once the cleanup's done, it's delisted from being, you know, super property. Once the cleanup's done, you know, it's a nice piece of property. It's next to an international bridge. It has, you know, it has all of those things that, you know, a good piece of industrial property or commercial property needs to have. And I am partial.
I think I left my brochure in the mayor's office, and that's even the other one.
Don't have that either.
That's okay.
But, so I just leave you with, you know, for the Racer Trust, from day one, our trustee has been clear, and I believe this, when I was brought on board, is that it is a collaborative effort. You know, we can't market it on our own. We won't market it on our own. We value and we need the input of the community, because at the end of the day, once we go, you have to live with whatever's there. And so we work very closely to make sure that the vision of the community is how we market, and whatever is ultimately there benefits the community by way of jobs, economic development, and growth. So I will continue to come here as often as I can.
2 quick questions.
Sure.
Is the riverfront an positive or negative?
I think it's a positive. The one barrier is right there on the edge. There is a cap there for some PCB sediments. We've had some people who wanted to look at it for, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I just lost everything I was getting ready to say about that. A port, yes, a port. But it'd be expensive because you'd have to build out over that cap. Now, for something else, you know, less than a port, something recreational, perhaps.
And then just one other thing out there. What can we, as board members, do to move this along?
I think that, you know, as I bounce different ideas off, you know, the supervisor, we talk a lot. And so I think that he's I'm going to speak for him. He is very comfortable with the direction I'm going. Well, you know, but we also have very honest and frank discussions.
I was just gonna say that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody holds anything back. You know, she knows what I think, I know what they think, and sometimes we like it, and sometimes we don't.
Right.
So we
And
have
that
to.
goes both ways.
You've never been
No,
one to hold things back.
But I think it's, you know, for us, you know, we need the partnership doesn't really, we have the sole ownership, and we could come in and market the property without a thought to what the community, wanted. That's not how we operate. So that's why I'm here. I'm here often, because, you know, we are a neighbor, we're a partner in the marketing, and I wanna make sure I'm here so I understand what you guys want, and so you understand what we're doing to continue to market the property. And so, you know, maybe I'll come back here in 6 months and give you an update on what's going on. You know, that would be fine. I would appreciate that, and, you know, just continuing the partnership that I have with the community is important.
I'm sure that the tribe is also involved in the discussions or the selection of the process. I haven't really heard you mention.
Well, the tribe, you know, the St. Regis Mohawk tribe is a signatory to the settlement agreement, right? And so, but the property is in, Massena. So, you know, we consider them a partner as well. And
Yeah.
we have been before tribal council and explained, you know, the racer trust model and how we, go about selecting end users. And so that's all we can do is educate. And, you know, and if they have concerns, I would hope that they would come to us and express those concerns they have in the past. And, you know, if we can positively address them, we will. If we can't, I'm going to be just as honest with them as I have been with the supervisor and tell you why I couldn't. But, you know, we try to reach out to them, and try to keep them as informed as we keep you guys informed.
And even though it's our property, we still want to be good neighbors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, we try to reach out to them, and we've had contact with, like I said, the tribal council. We've met them, and we explained the racer model and what we're doing. And we have their Department of Environment is on site working alongside Brendan. We've had contact with their Department of Economic Development. So we do continue to have a relationship and continue to work on and developing our relationship with the tribal government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I forgot to ask you the other, how's the shoulder? You gonna be able to pitch this season?
No, there'll be no pitching, no golfing. I tore my rotator cuff. I had rotator cuff surgery in December, and it's dead, man. I was crying like a baby that first time. I appreciate, I do appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and I hope to be able to do it, again.
With a sale.
Thank you very much.
With a sale.
Industries for Smith Spreaders Model S, anyway, it's a V-hopper sander used at the airport, total cost of $16,907. Motion, is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion, Frank, do we need to know anything more about it? This is,
Well, the only reason I'm asking for this is because I'm going to share some information with you about the airport CIP. Our FAA funding has been cut drastically for this year, and one of those things was to replace the snowplow along with the sander. So now that the process has been pushed into next year, so you're talking potentially a minimum of 2 years by the time you go through the process with them to get the money for another truck. So you're talking 2.5 years. And the issue we had this winter is we have one sander, the Airport 55. Airport 33 does not have a sander in it. Don't know why it doesn't, never had. This would be an insert into that box. We lost our sander in one of our, I'm going to call rain events. We had to shut the airport down. So I don't think that's what we want to do. And this sander is a duplicate sander of what we've got on 55, so when it comes to spare parts and everything works. You don't have a duplication in parts and you know, all the things that go along with it, and we know how to run it. So, and the truck can be outfitted with that, for that sander. We already have the right pump on it. It needs a 2-stage hydraulic pump, and it's already in place. So I'm just saying we're looking at least a minimum of 2 years to even for a new truck now. Like I said, the funding's been cut quite a bit.
Being stainless steel, this will last for
Yes.
quite some time, then we put it on the new truck as well, right?
Well, the new truck will come with
Oh, with it,
the
okay.
starting off.
Okay.
But it's a sander that could be used as a backup or a truck, it could be used at the highway department if we needed. I mean, it's got, you know, potential for other use after that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a grant application to the St. Lawrence Valley River Redevelopment Agency. And it's for a new diesel tank at the airport. It's in your packet. Need a motion, I guess, for discussion.
What was the cost of that?
Our total is $87,000, our share is $8,700, for $8,700. I'll give you some history. We have 12 pieces of equipment right now that use diesel. We've outgrown, we have a 500-gallon tank. And the working capacity is 450, so you can't fill it up to 500 because of expansion.
Right.
So we have 12 pieces of equipment out there now that require diesel fuel. And if I was to fill, for example, the snow blower, when you fill that up, that's 300 gallons. When you fill up 33 and 55, that's 70, 80 gallons. There's 450 gallons. It becomes a full-time job for me in the wintertime keeping diesel fuel at the airport. So what I'm asking is to replace there's a 500-gallon tank there now along with an unleaded tank that we don't even use anymore. Remove those tanks and install a 2,500-gallon tank at the airport. Because if you have a major snowstorm and somebody can't deliver fuel to you, then we're down. But everything we buy now, the pickup trucks, the mowers, everything is diesel out there. And we just don't have the capacity. We need more capacity because it requires, it's a, you know, making phone calls all the time to get people there.
Right.
And just your sense of urgency to somebody mine isn't necessarily their,
Right.
you know.
How much is a grant request for?
It's for, well, actually, it's 70, it'd be, the total is 87, but we're actually asking for 79.
That's where the RV are.
Yeah. And we've applied for this before.
What condition are the tanks now? Are they decent condition?
Yeah.
Can you get some money out of them?
Sure.
$8,700?
Huh?
$8,700?
I don't know, every time we put something for bid, they don't want to pay.
I know.
Yes,
We
it's
can recoup
something,
some of the money, though.
could be put out for bid.
Maybe half of it or whatever we
Sure.
could.
Would you keep it, or the old thing?
No, I have real no.
And it has to be a double wall tank, so we
Yes,
can
it's
do
gotta be
it
double wall tank.
with a containment.
Yep, and we'll have to go through the permitting process, and we'll have to change our storage tank.
Are the present tanks double walled?
Yep.
With containment? So there worth some money.
Yep.
Okay, we need a motion, we got the discussion, we need a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, abstentions, motion carries. Discussion to upgrade the obsolete energy management system for the library. You remember we put it, there was a new air conditioning system in the library, and now we're trying to upgrade the controls. They're old and pretty obsolete. There's information in your packet, a quote from Train on that.
Basically, this has gone to their board, and their president of their board has signed it, and we're just looking for the town board's approval to move ahead with the project.
And I just set that aside, what's the amount of that?
The project right now is $49,960 to $6. Also, there's a discount if you pay up front. You get $1,100 discount, so it's $48,896, and that's Elaine's intention, is to pay for it up front. And we'd like, if you get approval, this project will start in May.
And this is state contract price.
State contract price.
This is a grant that Elaine
Yes,
obtained.
yeah, she's got a grant, and she's looking for more money. She's got roughly 38,000 of it right now. And so their board has gone ahead and approved it. And we're just looking for, I guess, the town board's blessing to move ahead with it.
I think this will be a big energy savings
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
If we approve this, I know we had some issues before with the grant, put the cart before the horse. When they wanted this in the off season, which is coming up.
Yep.
I don't know where do we stand? Did she say, I don't remember where she said where we stood as far as further grants. I mean, we don't want to get this.
She's working on it, but she's saying that from our understanding, they're paying for it.
Okay.
Either one way or the other, they're gonna pay for it.
Okay.
Okay. And we had to do, there was, one of the valves that had to be modified, there was lead paint on it, we had that removed, that's done. We do need some work, NCC or somebody, when we decide who that is gonna have to run the internet. I'll get out the internet cable, we'll have a computer, it'll be all, it'll be all run with a computer, you'll be able to go on with your smartphone at home, and you get alarms if the boiler goes down in the middle of the night. It'll keep us from people going downstairs during the day when it get hot, shutting the boiler off, so. Okay, and they're all, the controls are wireless, so you don't have to break walls apart, you don't have to run cable. That saves a lot of money, so.
Insulation,
Yeah.
yep.
So I guess if you guys are okay with this, I have the original proposal with the president from their board sign, and Joe can sign it, I give it to Elaine, we can.
If we get a resolution and a motion to do that. Is there a motion to accept this?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, we have lots of discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next up, resolution to authorize the highway superintendent to purchase 23 carbon dioxide monitors at a cost of $47.95 each, for a total of $1,102.85 from Mid-State Industrial Supply. They will be installed in the town hall, the library, the airport, the highway garage, and the museum. As it says in the agenda, this is a requirement for the New York State Fire Code.
Good old New York City.
Of course. Is there a motion to that effect?
So move,
there a
mandatory.
Is there a second?
And I did go out, I went out
second.
for bids, there's 4 bids there, and they were the lowest. And it's something that has to be done by
Has to be done.
June 2016.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Surprised is this late in the day, I mean,
Some of that's me,
oh,
came out in the middle of the winter.
oh, no, I mean, as far, I mean, like, homes had to have carbon dioxide detectors when you sold them.
It was actually
6,
put
7
out,
years
it was
ago.
out there in June of 2015.
Well, still,
Cost of
kind of like,
commercial properties is reasonably held on.
what?
But I believe it was mandatory to homes first,
Yeah.
then it would cost the industrial and commercial places. It was held off, voted down several times, and then finally it passed through that it's mandatory for all commercial buildings and everybody to have it, so.
Next up, a discussion of the airport capital improvement plan number 1 and number 2.
Okay. This year there was plans at the airport, we were gonna do the taxiway A rehab construction. That was basically resurfacing, lights, replace the snowplow truck, the electrical home run, 27, or runway 27 Pappies, reels on 9. And then we were gonna start the taxiway C rehabilitation design and pavement maintenance and design for the administration road. Well, things have changed. FAA is making you work harder for your money. Now, once in the beginning of the year, you have to have a conference call, you have to review your CIP. And basically, they said that this stuff wasn't on there, which we got proof that it was, so basically, they said, well, there's no money for it. So, they're making you gotta do a risk assessment about applications, it's almost like a credit app now you have to go through. If you're not working on and off airport obstructions, they won't give you money. And you have to have your obstruction paperwork up to date on 20-to-1 ratios. And environmental assessments have to be completed. And if you have any open Part 139, your audits that you have yearly, at the FAA audits, if you don't have those completed, they won't give you money. There's just all kinds of things now that they're making you do. They're making it harder to get the money. So the only project that we have money to do this year is the electrical home run replacement and runway 27 Pappies and replacement runway 9 wheels. What the home run is the main electrical feed from the electrical building to the taxiways and runway lighting, which are in bad shape. So that's the project that myself, along with Pat Polzinski and Joel, decided to do, because if you lose the lights, you can't land at night. So we're going to go ahead with that project. The intent is to do that project this year, but obviously if they release the money in September, you don't start digging holes in Massena, New York in September, so it'll be, if the money's there, it'll be next year, but the intent is to try to get that project done. But, so next year, we got all the things that we wanted to do this year, it's on the CIP, we turned it in. So hopefully we were able to get those other projects going again next year, so.
We need to approve this capital improvement plan, correct?
No, this is just strictly informational for you guys, so you know what, because we've been telling you we're gonna do all these projects, and we have to have our share of the money, well, that's kinda gone away now. So we're down to, basically, it's about a $500,000 project, versus we were looking at, a couple of $1 million, so.
Where are we at with the painting?
That affects this.
Okay.
So in my conference call with the FAA, Mrs. Martinez, I said, well, you had an auditor up here telling me that we had to redo our markings. And part of that project was these markings. I'll take care of that.
It'll go away, because we don't have the money.
So she goes, I'll take care of it. I'll talk to I won't say his name, but the auditor. So she says that, so what I'm gonna do is, the CNS itself, we're gonna write another letter basically saying because of the projects being postponed, we're asking to put the markings off. Because why do I wanna go and spend $100,000 to do markings and then next year tear them all up? That's what I said to her. She goes, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But the one thing that we will do this year is we'll paint the center line, which I can have the county do.
So the rest are still visible, there's not.
They're there, they're just not,
pilots or-
dimensionally, they are correct.
Oh, dimensionally.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're still bright.
Yeah.
Thank God we made it new copies and new home run.
Well, copies are important, and so are the reels. Copies will tell you if you're gonna come in, if you're coming in level or not.
Now, if we were talking about poppies and home runs, it'd be big poppy hitting home runs, right? So it would be
So is the wire rotted, or?
Yes,
Okay.
it's original wiring.
Okay. So it is something
We've had
different?
several issues with it over the years, so they're gonna replace the feeds, the main feeds.
So they put in a watertight
Yep,
container?
they're gonna
or
put it in
what,
a,
or
we call it,
conduit, or
it's in a box, there's a terminology.
cable tray?
Cable tray or a vault.
Okay.
Okay, good, thanks for the update. Resolution authorizing renewal of a certificate of deposit account, I assume that's what that is. Number 2406 at MBT Bank. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
What's the terms? Your term, or?
It's for the Barnhart Estate. It was approved years and years ago, and all we do is spend the interest, and so we invest in a CD.
It was to the
And-
library, correct?
No,
Oh,
that
this
goes
was-
to the
okay.
interest is used for a hospital, like creature comforts for the hospital,
Okay.
and one like that and stuff, but they pretty much depleted the account, the savings account, while going to buy mattresses. So now there's just a couple $100 in interest. But what we do is we just, look around, see what the best CD rate is, and then we renew it for 6 months. It's 50,000.
They all stink, rates all stink.
Yeah, some of the banks now tell me they're not even interested. They don't even want 50,000.
Don't want the money.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Another resolution authorizing the town clerk and your deputy to attend the New York State Town Clerks Association Conference, April 17th to the 20th in Saratoga. You have the motion, a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. You have a list of the workshops they want to attend.
Why are they going to lunch so much?
Going to lunch, yeah, well, once a day, I guess. right?
Just kidding. You
so-
looked at me though.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve this. We have a motion, I think, any further discussion before we approve this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
This one.
You should have this one first, probably.
Resolution authorizing the town clerk to hire Georgette Davis as a temporary part-time deputy clerk and deputy registrar to cover the town clerk and the deputies while attending the New York State Conference April 18, 19, and 20 at $20 per hour. And of course, she has experience, as you all know. She's also a certified notary public.
So, second.
The deputy registrar, scratch that. Okay.
What are you pressing out?
Deputy registrar. So this be
stay the same at $20 even though she's not registered.
Cut it probably.
When we say part-time, the office is gonna be open full-time
Yeah,
while you're gone, though, right?
temporary position.
Hold on.
No,
Okay, so how many hours a day will be open?
I have to work that out with her.
Okay, so it won't be a normal 8 to 4:30 business day,
You know,
those
look
3
at
days.
the important hours of the day that we do most business
Okay,
and that she can do for us. Most of it is notary, you know,
okay.
she's learning it for the backup.
And we have a meeting that Wednesday.
We do.
She'll cover that?
I'm sure she will. I haven't.
You weren't sure if you'll be back in time, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping to be back in time for that meeting, but at my
So-
close, so I was going to ask her that if she would sit in for me, because Jeannie will be with me. But
So we won't have the office open the full day.
no, I mean, this is a one-time conference that I need her to go. Normally, she wouldn't go, but there's too many new things to
Right,
learn right
yeah.
now for both of us.
Are you looking at, you don't know, but are you looking at 4 or 5 hours?
4 hours a day, five, no, probably no more than 5.
Is there anybody else that could fill in? To make it a full time?
It's
Not that,
3 days, so.
and it has to be, you know, she's a notary, that's a
Maybe
lot of
Joe,
our
could you
time.
move over to that?
I'm a notary.
There you go, perfect. Go and take the other 3 hours.
Oh my, are you kidding? I am so stressed right now, I couldn't possibly take on another. Actually,
Joe, it's $20 an hour, it's more than you're making now.
I know it is, yeah, but that's gonna be, 4, 5, and 6 days post-surgery for my new hip, so I don't be doing like, I won't be around after that, I don't think.
So if you're not gonna be here, and Pam's not gonna be here, what are we gonna do about banking and signing and?
We'll get it all done before and after, I guess. I mean, I would assume I'll be home, I mean, so I can sign stuff from home.
So Georgette probably should give you authority to sign checks. Because it's the check writer.
Do we give it to Albert?
Yeah, I'll
But
probably
we need
do
2
it anyway.
signatures, and then,
Well,
I
I
mean,
have
to do the actual check, to do the check writer machine.
Yeah, but just to sign off on it using the machine. Sign off on the check mark.
Somebody gotta use the machine and get all the signatures.
I get what you're saying.
And, you know, we can't wait anytime else.
I got it.
Because you're gonna be on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so there'll be a payroll.
Yeah.
So Georgia would just have to be able to, you have to say that she can use the check.
We have to
writing
authorize
machine.
her to.
So in place of deputy registrar, we would put deputy town clerk and, use of the check writing machine for temporary use of the check writing machine.
And then we have to do a transfer to cover the checks.
Well, she's not gonna be able to transfer.
So what
How do
do
we authorize her, how do we
Well-
authorize her to do a transfer of our money? We can't
We
do that.
can't, so when you're at home, I don't know how to do that.
Bring it over.
He's the only one who can sign it.
I
and
can't,
I can.
I can still do it.
I mean, if you're gonna be gone, we have to transfer the funds to cover the payroll and just.
We can't do that beforehand?
But
No, the payroll's not done till Tuesday.
I understand that, but we can't transfer the money on a Thursday for the following week?
No, because, you have to get it in the account by Wednesday because of, it's all direct deposit.
But it-
There's a deadline.
it doesn't matter where I am, I can still go online and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me, call me, I'll leave my cell number,
Okay.
and I can go online.
Versus another.
Get the
Yeah,
deputy.
but the 2 signatures is the problem. He can only provide 1 signature, right?
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got it.
And usually the clerk is provide the second.
Got it.
Okay,
Okay.
any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstention.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Did we make a motion? I thought we did. Albert made a motion, didn't he? No, we
Made
didn't.
a motion to go.
No, we didn't, okay, well, we gotta back up then. We need a motion, John, to authorize this action.
So moved.
For a second, motion and a second. Okay, we have lots of discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Good, it's done. Shortage of pilots. Part of that shortage, according to Cape Air and other people, is that there is a significant requirement of having 1,500 hours of flight time to qualify. And Cape Air is asking the town board to send a letter to Congress urging the repeal of the 1,500-hour rule. Did I say 1,500 hour rule? They think that'll help them, they think that'll create more put more pilots in the pipeline and help ease some of the shortage. So, I don't know how you feel about that.
I think this could cause a lot of trouble.
To change the rule, you mean? Or is it
1,500 hours, that's a lot of hours. You're wiping out a lot of applicants to get pilot's licenses.
No doubt.
And we know Potsdam's gonna shut down
Yeah.
for a considerable, in Ogdensburg. So
Yeah.
this is,
And there
This
is,
is to repeal that.
well, it's to
That's
repeal
exactly
the
right.
requirement, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, he's saying that the rule is a
Oh,
problem. is what
oh,
he's
yeah,
saying.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
the repeal. I mean, I think it makes
Yeah.
sense. Look, this was, I believe, a reaction. Remember there was a plane crash in Buffalo a few years ago? The pilots supposedly weren't experienced enough. The airline didn't do a good enough job policing that, they claim. So then what happens, we pass a new rule, you have 1,500 hours of flight training, or flight, whatever it is, experience, I'm not sure the proper term is. But, so, Cape Air is saying that rule is oppressive, and other airlines that feel the same way. They want us to weigh in with Congress about
yeah,
that.
especially small airlines,
Yeah,
like the EAS providers.
right. I mean, you know what to do what they do. So, if you are willing to pass a resolution, then or motion, then I certainly will get the letter done.
So
Second.
Motion and a second, all right? We have lots of discussion before the motions tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This next item is sponsorship of Massena Anglers in a professional bass circuit. We have, last year, if you remember, we did a 2-year agreement with Chris Flint, who is from Potsdam, I believe, who fishes in the FLW circuit, to sponsor his boat and his truck. Or sponsor him, rather, we would get display on his boat and his truck. We did that a 2-year deal. The second year of that agreement is in place and going forward. But since then, I've been approached by another young gentleman who is 18 years old, who's been fishing on another circuit, professional bass circuit. We'll be fishing a full schedule this summer. He was in my office on Friday, and I didn't bring his name with me. But I know there's another professional bass angler in Massena who said to me last year, oh yeah, you sponsored Chris Flint, but you didn't sponsor me, and I'm from Massena. I said, did you ask? Well, no. I said, okay then, shut up. I didn't say shut up, but I said, okay then. You didn't ask, how do I know you weren't looking for a sponsor? So, I bring this up, and we have a current request right now from this young gentleman that came Friday. I'm expecting there's at least one more person that's going to be interested in sponsorship. The package I was presented, did I forward it to you?
Yes.
Okay. The package you presented is really quite a range of sponsorship levels. So, we have money in the promotions budget. We'll figure out, when we process the show expenses in the next couple of weeks, we'll figure out how much we have left in that account. So, I just wanted to bring this up for discussion to see if I can get some feedback from you on your interest in sponsoring other anglers. Hold on, if we have money in the budget to do that.
Well, on the surface, it doesn't, there's a range from $500 to $100.
Yeah.
$500, you get the whole thing, the boat, the trailer, and so on and so forth, and it goes down to the patch. But I don't know, do we really want to do that?
And that's why I'm bringing it up.
Like you say, if we sponsor one,
We open the door.
we open the door, and not a lot of money becomes, I don't know.
That's why I'm bringing it up. Any other thoughts?
Well, we opened the door already last year.
Yes, we did.
We want to keep it.
quantify anything, I mean, is Chris handing out flyers? Chamber flyers, and, you know,
He,
what are we getting that we got
I
for
will
Chris?
tell you that he had, a multi-day presence at the Suffering Show this past weekend. He was also at Philadelphia, I think he was also at Springfield for several days. So, and of course, we're gonna cover the expenses for him to be there, but we're not paying him to be there other than a sponsorship. So, and does he get personal benefit? Sure, he's promoting himself as well. But, we get the staff in the booth in addition to Don, and we got a guy who's said, is a professional angler, could tell them, you know what, I fish Massena, I'm from there, it's great, I'm from up there, the fishing's great up there. So, how do we quantify it? Very, very difficult. Much like everything we do, how do we quantify the BDC? But that's been a discussion for 30 years, right? How do we quantify the impacts, the money we spend on economic development? How do we quantify the benefits we get from funding change? I can't tell you how we do that because we haven't, but nonetheless, we do it in other areas, so.
I think we really need to sit down and discuss this as what way we wanna go. I don't know if sponsoring people individually is the best bang for our buck. I'm not so sure about that, I'm not a marketing director type guy. I think that it was, again, before opening the door, and I can see it coming down the road where other people are gonna go. I think we need to have a grasp on what is the best way to spend our money to promote this area. More so than getting individual requests and voting on each one of those. If we come up with a plan,
That's
and
my,
we have this money in this pool that we say we wanna market the rivers, then we can pool, take the money out of that pool, but I don't know if this is the way to do it. I'm not sure.
right,
I'm not,
I'm not either, that's why I brought it to you.
right.
I know we've had public comment already. If Don doesn't speak now, he's probably gonna speak at the end of the meeting,
No,
so.
I'm gonna have a
Okay,
comment,
all right.
I just wanna make sure you, so Don, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, actually, I have some questions and some concerns and a request, and it has to do with what you're talking about. You're talking about gambling compact money?
Yeah, that's where it comes from, contact money, yeah.
All right, I'd like to point out to you, there's a lot of people in Massena that think the idea of Massena promoting sport fishing is a new idea, and it's not. I'll give you an example. Muskie Magic Charters worked with the Industrial Development Agency under the direction of Frank Ogweier 30 years ago. And a significant amount of time was put forth by the Industrial Development Agency to come up with a business plan to open Muskie Magic Charters. And it allowed us to secure nearly $100,000 in loans to start a business that has been in Massena for 28 years. And one of the things that had happened shortly after that business was realized is Muskie Magic Charters got an Entrepreneur of the Year award from the Adirondack Economic Development Council, an agency that gave out funds for startup businesses. The loans were paid back at a low interest, but they were afforded opportunities for other businesses to apply for loans, which Cornell's Dry Cleaning put in a request for a loan after we had paid ours back. As I say, I have some concerns about how you've been spending the gambling compact money. Of course, you came up with a committee to promote sport fishing under the directions of Tom Miller. You got Tony Zappia, a sports writer, Pat Peets, a jewelry store owner, Jimmy Lyons, a laborer at Alcoa, and probably the person that probably deserves a spot at that table that has the most experience would be Mike Gagne, who has been quite successful in running the local Walleye Association's tournaments. I have a problem with the idea that he lives in Raymondville. I've made it clear that I wanted to be made a part of this effort to promote Massena. Tom Miller came and interviewed me one year, and last year, after somebody in the audience had suggested that I might be a possibility to send the sport shows. there was a short notification of the sports shows. I think that they contacted me 2 weeks before the show. As you know, Joe, we had many discussion over it. When Tom came to talk to me, I was a little dismayed that they had formed a committee, that I'd made it clear that I wanted to offer my expertise in the field, and he chose these other people that, and quite honestly, in my opinion, have never spent a dime promoting Massena, this committee that was formed. I have spent tens of thousands of dollars promoting Massena.
Well, promoting your business.
Promoting my business
Yeah.
and Massena. Now, the point I get at is when I promote Massena, you're putting all this money into these sports shows and into Donnie Meisner's, you're paying a pretty good fee
You get a $20,000 contract for a year.
for representing Massena. What he does for Massena is what I used to do on a voluntary basis for the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. We used to do Ottawa, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and Ohio. They'd pay for the booths. I'd go man the booths, and I got meals and rooms. I didn't get a $20,000 salary for doing it. Now, I think it's advantageous that you have a presence at these sports shows. But what I would like to offer, and this is something that I come to realize, when I started my business, there was a gentleman by the name Ed Fay that run a small business development center out of Canton. And there was a local attorney named McGinn that put on a business class that I took. And what they told us was, you do try these different mediums for promoting your business, and then you give them a scorecard. You try to deduct where the money was best spent. You'll find out that there's certain things that you do, it's a waste of money. Sports shows are quite successful in bringing people into the area. What you need to realize is something that was done by the New York State Power Authority about 20 years ago for less than the price of what you're paying for Donnie Meisner's wages. The Power Authority put up $15,000 to have a professional film crew come up from Johnson City, Tennessee. Now I'm talking about a professional, nationally known film producer, not somebody like Donnie Meisner that his...
Who's nationally known?
Donnie's not really known outside of the PBS broadcast area. I've had films producers, sports writers on my boat, and I asked them if they've heard of Rod and Reel Streamside and Donnie Meisner. Never heard of them. Well, the idea was, what happened was they came up here, they did a promotional television show. It cost the guy got paid $15,000 for it. He took it back to the broadcasting companies, and the way broadcast areas like in cable television and satellite dish is they're given a listing of what they have available that they can choose for show to put on their networks. Our show got put in there, and it went all across the country. Now, the way this works for the film producer, he gets paid initially for putting it together. For a whole month, we get calls from Arizona. The next month, we get calls. Where'd you hear about us? Saw your television show. Where are you calling from? We're calling from Texas. Month, we get calls from Texas. The next month, we get calls from Georgia for a whole month. We got calls from Hawaii. For a year time that he promoted that, I was realizing 40 to 50 charters a year and putting into the local motels 80 to 120 reservations a season. Now that's a lot of bed tax. That's a lot of goods and services that were bought in town here. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but what I think you need to do is look at where you're spending your money, these gambling compact money, and where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. I can tell you right now that I went to the Springfield, Massachusetts show with Donnie Meisner last year, and I will tell you, I will commend him. You've picked a fine individual to represent Massena. I've never seen so much enthusiasm and ambition and a passion for reaching out to the people and bringing them to the booth. Quite honestly, I've never seen such a pathetic display at a sports show in my life. I've done these in Ohio and Pennsylvania. I've been to some major shows. And when you put up a picture that says, a banner that says Massena Welcome Sportsman, and then you put up a picture of the Cape Air airplane and a walleye on the table and half a dozen brochures, that does not garner any attention. People were walking by us so quickly, it was unbelievable. Now I did, as you know, I was very passionately pursued to you and Tom to be allowed to be made a part of that show. When I went down to Springfield, Massachusetts, I bought a display of mounted fish, a rolling display of photographs, movies. I bought banners, which this blew my mind. They didn't have any pictures of the Bassmasters Elite Tournament, one of the biggest draws there is in the North Country. I had pictures of canoeing and kayaking on the St. Regis and the Grass River. I had horseback farms that were promoting. These are all promotional materials. And what I've come to realize over the years, to promote my business, I can't do it on just Massena alone. I have the locks, I have the visitor center, I have the Massena Museum, some arts and crafts places, but other than that, they're here for a day or two and they're gone because they've done everything. What you need to realize, the promoters here, is that you have to capitalize on everything that you have to offer. And that's the Mohawk Casino, and that's Frederick Remington Museum, and that's any businesses. You want to put together a package that brings people from out of state up here, where they're going to, home base is going to be in Massena, but they need other options as far as bringing them in. Now, when I went down to the show, Donnie told me, we can't promote the state forest. Why not? Well, this committee that they put together said that our state forest is in Massena. And that just blew me away. They couldn't.
There's never been a discussion like that. I don't know where that's coming from.
Donnie Meisner told,
I'll tell you that this year, we went to the County Chamber of Commerce, we went to the Massena Chamber of Commerce. We took brochures from the Seaway, from the casino, from everywhere. I think we did it last year too. So,
well,
it's really
I think Donnie learned his lesson last year, that with what he went down with was so limited, he had nothing on our golf course.
It was the first and only show we did last year. We did 4 this year. It was very different. We had.
Well, he got quite an education after I went down to the show with him. He went down there half-cocked. Now, these are my concerns, and this is my request.
Okay,
let's
get to that.
You have a committee that's been formed, and I would like to be part of that committee. I think I bring a lot of experience to the table. I can tell you where you're wasting money and where you can make a better investment, return on your investment.
I can tell you that the show decisions were not made by any committee. You're always so positive too, Don. That's the other reason I'd like to have you involved. You know, to say that it's a waste of money. The television show you mentioned, we just did one of those. It was aired all over the country. Last year we approved it with compact money. So this year the sportsman shows we did in 4 different cities. That's a pretty good feedback. I believe at Springfield last year, a guy came up to the booth and said to Meisner, "Hey, I saw you on TV this morning." Is that the case? Were you there that day when that happened?
I don't
see. So that's the other thing that Meisner brings. You say he's limited exposure. It's exposure nonetheless. So people know this guy.
I didn't say Donnie wasn't a bad choice.
I didn't know. I agree. You didn't say that. But so. Will we do the shows again next year? I don't know.
Well, let me tell you another concern that I have.
I know that if we don't promote it, if we do nothing to promote it, it isn't going to get promoted, right?
Well, this year they had a posting on Facebook about the Springfield, Massachusetts show, and they did a write-up. And they mentioned Muskie Magic Charters, but unfortunately, they misspelled the name, so if somebody goes to look me up on the internet, it's going to set them off in left field.
And you pointed that out in a very negative way, no doubt
about that. Yes, I did, because I thought it was very unfortunate that if we're going to be paying people, they ought to get the information correct. Now, the video, I was a little critical of that, and this is what I've learned from experience. When you flash pictures with music over it, but if you do a voiceover, it adds excitement to it and it brings people attention to it, and you're going to get a lot better of a response. Now, unfortunately, I was a little critical of it, and then I said, unfortunately, you misspelled the name of my business, And the video was a little weak because they used small fish and they used one fish that was actually halfway decent, but it looked like it had cancer. It should not have been allowed in the production. So I put my comment on there, and Mr. Flint, who gets paid by the town of Massena, sent me a personal email and said apparently the presentation wasn't up to my standards, which it wasn't. It wouldn't be up to anybody, any professional promoter. It wouldn't have been up to their standards. And then he told me, we don't have to promote you. Now, I emailed him back and I said, look, I'm a resident of the town of Massena, and if you're going to take our gambling compact money, and I'm a business in this town, I would most certainly hope that you would promote me just as well as you would Ed Reyes. Now, last year when I went to the Springfield show, Donnie Meisner was amazed at the fact that I was handing out Ed Reyes's Let's Go Fishing brochure. He says, I can't believe you're doing that. I said, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to promote the whole town. He says, nobody's ever done that for you. And he's talking about Fish Cap when Ed Reyes was on there. So that's why I feel that you need somebody else that would like to be constructive and add, not criticism, but bring some constructive ideas to the committee.
Okay. We don't really have a committee per se. Tom, explain.
For the record, since he used my name, this is what happened. The supervisor came to me and asked me to try to find the best way to promote the rivers. I contacted some sportsmen that I knew, quickly as possible. And with all of them, we met at the fire department, and all of them said these sports shows were probably the best way to get started. For some reason, Don wasn't there, because I don't know the clash of personalities or not. I took it upon myself to meet with him at his house for 2 hours, because I valued his opinion. So for him to say that it was my committee, there was never a committee. It was more to talk to find a way to start to promote the rivers to go fishing. There was never another meeting with this committee. The supervisor I got together, Meisner was hired by the full board to try to start promoting the rivers. It'll be looked at the end of this year.
We put money in the budget for
Right.
promotion.
Well, if you remember my analogy, Tom.
And we'll look at it at the end of this year to see if we can quantify if that's the way to go or not. I spoke to people, those guys told me, and Don told me, speak to outdoorsmen, so I did from Ogdensburg area. They talked about the sports show. That's where going to the sports show originated. It wasn't a committee to leave anybody out, because I did go to his house and speak to him for 2 hours.
Well, if you
So
remember
that's
the analogy that I
for the
used,
record.
Tom, I said if you were going to promote the restaurant industry in Massena, you would be remiss not to include Mabel Seacock and Dominic Violi. And I make that comparison because there's no one in this town that has the experience. I know I offended you when you said that I'm approaching this like I'm a coach and I put together a team, and I said you left Michael Jordan on the bench, and you were offended by that. I wasn't trying to imply that I was better than anybody else, but I was trying to imply...
I tried to go the right way, Don, and talk to the sportsmen that we knew in town. That was it. I wasn't offended by anything that you said, trust me. Believe me.
Well, anyways, like I say, I would just like to, that's my request, I'd like to be part of the, because as far as the sports shows...
Don reached out to you for some of the shows this year, didn't he?
Yes, and unfortunately,
he
called me a week and a half before the shows, and my wife was already scheduled for hip replacement surgery. If he'd have let me know, okay, I'm going to say to Sam Carbone, Sam, we want you to go down to a conference in New York City next week. Do they do it that way, or do they let you know in advance? Plan it? I couldn't plan it, and unfortunately, I had to pass, and I would have had a lot to offer. But getting notified of a trip out of town a week and a half in advance, how long had you known that you were doing these shows in Suffern and Pennsylvania and Ohio?
We started organizing probably in December.
And he gets a hold of me a week and a half before. If I'd have known in December, I would have made my schedule. I would have had a display there that would have blown you away.
I think if you see, we'll have the display that we did at a show in a future meeting. I don't know if it'll be in May or April, because I'm not going to be here, because I'd like to be here. But I'm going to have Flint and Meisner come and show you what the booth looked like to some degree. One of the cool things that they did this year, I haven't seen it yet. When When I took office, there was an old video camera down, not old, a video camera down that the previous supervisor had purchased to broadcast the town board meetings. And that required a $10,000 piece of equipment to uplink to Time Warner. It never happened. Time Warner wouldn't spring for the equipment. The town didn't spend the money. But this camera was down there. So I hauled the camera out. I said to Meisner and Dave Swanson, who's a friend of Meisner's who was with North Country Savings Bank, I said, can you do something with this camera? So they went out and they filmed a bunch of stuff. They had a laptop or a tablet set up at the show, at all the shows. Somebody came up to the booth and Meisner would say, what do you like to fish for? Walleye. Let me show you something. You push a key. There comes up a video of Don out catching walleye in either one of the tributaries of the St. Lawrence. Another guy likes bass. So here's a click. Here's a short video on bass. Again, he's pulling in sizable fish. So that kind of interactive stuff is good. So I wanted them to come here and show us on what they did, so you get an idea of what this booth looked like and some of the investment we made. We did a brochure for the first time in quite some time. We had a brochure that was, and I don't have any with me tonight, because they took the last batch of the show, and I assume they have some left, that was promoting Massena in general, referred to the casino. We need better materials to do that down the road, and I'm going to see what we have left after these shows, see what the budget looks like, and see if we can get some more materials for future
I
years.
believe Nate and Don talked together and they got some stuff, right, Nate?
I provided pictures for the shows, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was kind of, you guys kind
Yeah,
of.
I wish I had more,
Time.
high res, I didn't, and it was just bad timing, because I was actually right in the middle of doing a photography contest with the community with more, hoping to have more, high res images.
Nate, stop over, I've got a library of high resolution. All my charters, I've got a case at home like this of, they're not high resolution, but I got videotapes.
I watched them.
There's a lot of stuff we
But
have.
I've got a lot,
of
I've
cell
got a
phone
lot
images.
in,
They just don't
You gotta have
translate
good
to print
stuff.
line.
Right, we went to the printer, they're like, no, this isn't good enough, what else you got? So we came up with, I don't know, 6 or 8 good fishing photos and some other, I think we had a nice one that shot of the Seaway, ship coming out of the locks or whatever, to put together on this brochure.
I've got a lot of it in digital format also. So if you need something, I've got
Okay.
every species of fish. And and Joe, what upset me about their video that they had down at the show?
Well, that was Flint's video, that wasn't really the showcase video by any means, the one he put together.
Well, they were less than average size fish, and most of your promoters go for the eye catchers.
Sure, of course.
And there was one, it almost got to eye catcher size, but it was all scarred up, and it's not a good image to project for the area.
Okay.
And I apologize if I come across as being negative, but I'm kind of passionate about the subject. And I do feel that I would bring a lot to the table if I could get some recognition in this town.
So to get back to Albert says what we're gonna do with the request, what do you wanna do with this request to sponsor other fishermen?
Yeah. Yeah.
You wanna wait, come up with criteria, you wanna not do any, I mean,
Wait.
I can maybe put together something else, in addition, and see what, I'll talk to a little bit more, maybe to Flint, and see, get an idea of what we should be looking for, and things like that. I know that the package I sent you from the Zero Manning outlined the tournaments he was gonna be doing, all that kind of stuff, which we need from anybody. And I think maybe the best, if we're thinking about doing this, the best way might be to say, we're looking at possibly sponsoring anglers. If you're interested, let us know, if you're from Massena.
Well, it should have been somebody from Massena in the first place.
Yeah, set up a budget with the
Right.
money that was set aside, this portion's gonna be for sponsorship,
Right.
and then that's it.
That's what I'm saying, right, and we need to find out in the budget, there was $42,500 for tourism and fishing promotion. We gotta see what we spent on these 3 shows, and 4
We're down
shows.
to 30,000 right now, and we don't have all the expenses from the show.
Okay,
Can I ask a question about the anglers?
the shows aren't
Do
cheap.
they have like a resume? I'm new to the whole fishing scene.
Yeah.
We got
Do they have like a
resumes.
resume of like what they've won, stuff like that? Like,
If there,
are
this,
they a top tier person?
right, and then you get an idea of where the tournaments are, what the level is of the tour they're doing. This gentleman is 18, he's young, he's just kinda starting out. But there are other people that have more experience, Flint's been doing it for a while, get more experience.
I don't know if sponsoring the annuals are the way to go. The only thing I got for positive feedback from everybody was to go to these shows
Right.
and put advertisement out for everything, and that's what we started. So we have to look individually
Cause
at
yeah, I guess you're
sponsoring
talking
people.
about two different things. One's more of a sportsman, competition, one is our tourism.
Right.
Right, and you gotta.
Those are two different
And
things.
you gotta think, you question, what's the exposure is somebody's boat and trailer and truck are gonna get at a tournament, as opposed to a show when 30,000 people come through the show in 2 days? So
Joe,
bigger
is this, your selections of sport shows, some are more advantageous than others. Now, what we found out through the county chamber of commerce under the direction of Byron Gill, Ohio was a waste of time because they've got Lake Erie, they've got Lake Huron.
Yeah, we have better fishing than they have.
Yeah, but it's,
I mean, we do.
you can't draw them away from what
Well,
they
let me
have.
tell you what, I don't want, geez, we're getting way off in the weeds. At the Columbus show, a guy comes up, and he says he's president of a company or CEO of a company in Canada. I'm looking for a place to take 15 to 20 people on a fishing retreat. Can we do it in Massena? Now, we get that exposure at Columbus, Ohio, Don, and he asked the question. So, we didn't have a
Is
good
he
answer.
looking for enough charter boats to take out 15 people?
I would think he would have been, yeah.
You can't do it. Right now,
Right, Don, and guess what, I didn't tell him that, we didn't tell him that, we don't advertise that yet. We need to build the infrastructure. That's, this isn't gonna happen overnight, you know that.
Well, wait a
How long
minute,
does it
wait
take
a
you, how
minute,
long to
Joe.
build your business?
Last year, I did a tournament for the casino. We took out 50 anglers. I had to hire 8 guides,
Right?
and I had to go as far as Lake Ontario, but I got them to come there.
Yeah.
And it was so successful with the casino, this year we're doing 100 guests.
Yeah.
We got 9 boats,
I guess it can be done.
and
Right.
well, you can't just say, come on down here. It can't be
Well,
done.
it was done.
It was,
Let's,
you did it. You
it'd
did
be
it.
able to do it for 100 people this year.
It took 7 months of planning
Exactly.
to get that many guides together.
So is this the last show that they're at right now, or is there another?
It was just this past weekend, Suffolk's the last one.
That's
There's
awesome.
another one in Ottawa that the county chamber made, the county chamber had a presence of some of these shows as well. And we offered to do a joint presence. That didn't happen, and I'm not quite sure we both needed to be there. So I hope in the future, you see, the county chamber had also just gotten a big fish cap grant. The fish cap had secured a big grant from the state. They had $170K to spend, and I think that's all been spent. So they had money to spend on these shows. They bought a fishing simulator thing, I don't know what all else. But again, had there been better coordination, and we reached out to the county chamber, had there been better coordination, maybe we wouldn't have needed 2 different booths there. But, you know, hey, lesson learned, right? Okay, we're done with this. Let's move on.
Contracts, one for the town hall, one for the library, and one for the airport. So I said, after we agreed to go ahead with this project, I said, what can you do for us when it comes to service contract? You know, you got 3 of them, can we get it to 1, can you give us a better rate? So they said they would look at that. So last year, we paid, for all 3 service contracts, we paid $6,225. This year, we are going to pay $6,472. So they increased it by $247. So they got back with me and they said that, basically what they said, as of 9/1, if we agree to this, they would charge us $6,290. So it's a reduction of $182. On top of that, we always pay our bill before it's due. So there's another 3%, so it gets us down to $6,101. So we saved roughly almost $300 this year. So I guess what I'm looking for is, do you want to go with the 1 contract? Obviously, 1 contract means 1 check. Nancy doesn't have to, we don't have to issue 3 checks. It's not a huge amount, but it's almost $300 off. And I'm just looking for your okay to go ahead to them and say we want to put it under 1 contract.
If it saves us money, why wouldn't we?
I mean, it's not a large sum, but it is
What's
something.
the downside?
Nothing.
So move.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, resolution is to approve and allow the supervisor to sign a lease agreement with Air Methods for the use of the hangar at the airport and the house we have on airport property as well. They want, I think we talked about this last month. Air Methods does the medevac transports. They are normally located at the Potsdam Airport because that'll be shut down for a couple months this summer. They want to relocate to the Massena Airport. They want to utilize the hangar for their airplane, and they need quarters for their crew. We're on duty 24 hours, so they'll be renting the house that we have at the airport now as well.
So,
Motion is
it just for the purpose of asking the question.
Second.
Okay, what's the, is it, what we agreed on?
yeah, it would be $1,000 a month for each location with a $2,000 security deposit.
And they are, when it comes to insurance, they are to basically, we are on there to additional insured,
Additional
if
insured
there's any
party.
injuries. And obviously, we talked about, we pay for the water, the electricity, and shouldn't be any heat. So hopefully we can entice them to want to stay around. And what I want to do with this, Joe, is before you sign it, is they obviously want their legal service to look at this, so I'll email it to them. If they're okay with it, then I'll get back with you and have you sign it.
So if there's no changes to it.
The only question I have is, I think we have stuff stored in the garage.
They don't need the garage.
They don't need
Okay,
the
so
garage.
we should probably have that on here, that the garage is not included in this contract.
It's not. We told them
Is
the
it
garage is not
mentioned in
available.
there?
Well, it's not mentioned, I didn't see it actually, so,
Yeah,
we
It
just
was in
wanna,
the discussion that we had.
I know, but we should probably,
Well, we're running out of time.
Yeah.
if
They
it's
wanted
not
this a
included,
month
it's
ago.
not included, right?
Send it to,
all right, whatever.
And that's
I'm
my
just
comment,
saying,
it's not-
they asked us to have this,
That's fine.
A week after
Who
we
drew this
got-
up? Did Eric draw it up? Did
Yes.
you just add that
yes,
to it?
Eric,
Did
Eric,
you-
yeah. Just send it to me
Or
this
you just
morning.
write it on here,
They
the
want the
garage is not
garage, they
included in
can
the
have
lease
it.
No, they
agreement.
can't have it because it's full of our stuff.
That's all right, we'll give it.
Eric just got this to me this morning, and this guy keeps calling and
Yeah.
he wants it.
It should take them 5 minutes just to add that the garage is included, that way there's no
I
discrepancy.
don't know, we can, I'm not gonna say any more about that.
Okay,
I'll pass it to you.
We should email these.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, abstention, motion carries. Okay,
If they've got issues, we will modify it, if they have issues.
transfers and amendments for library, town, and rescue squad. Those are in your packet. Need a motion for those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Warrant number 2 of the bills for the month.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. Motion carries. Financial reports are provided in your packet for February of 2016. The revenue and expense report, and also a year-to-date fund summary to February of 2016. Okay, next regular town board meeting is April 20th. We are going to need a short executive session on a few items. Primarily, let me find my list, they're legal, what did I do on this? Here it is. One is employment conditions for a specific individual, and another one is a contract negotiation.
Are we doing committees as well, or no?
unless we need to, I was just gonna say, unless we need, because we have the executive session, we need to, unless we need to.
The committees, whatever, we can go through them quick, or if we want to skip them, we can skip them, it doesn't matter to me.
Let's assume skip.
Skip.
The only thing I wanted to comment, 'cause I wanted to start working on something is, we had 15 resolutions at the Association of Towns. What they are is basically the resolutions that the Association of Towns passes, and that's what they work on for the year with legislation to get things moving and basically lobby for what the towns together want to accomplish. And I think, you know, to go along with the tourism aspect of our area, I was thinking that one thing we need to do is come up with a resolution that we support a multi-trail use system throughout the state, basically, so we can help that effort push forward. I think it would help along with, the outdoors type,
Okay,
of fishing and.
you've got some of those resolutions, or?
Yeah, I'll work with,
Okay.
a few other people, the county attorneys are working on it, as well as
Okay.
Deb Christie and the trails coordinator.
That's
and,
really good.
Yeah, she is good.
Super.
And, Tony Arquette, we'll get something together for next year's association town.
Okay, good. I have one other thing too, and if anybody else in the council has anything else too, certainly jump in. We had, sort of a late game time decision. Have had one estimate for floor covering for the new museum building. I want to update you quickly on that too. We need to get other quotes for comparison, but nonetheless, I'd like us to authorize an amount not to be exceeded to approve for floor covering and for installation at the new museum building. I'd like a motion to spend not more than $9,800 on new floor covering for a good portion of the building that obviously was torn up and needs to be replaced.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay.
Where's the money coming from?
Good question. We've got some,
We didn't know that.
we've got some money we can use for now. I hope we're gonna be able to recoup more than this when we sell the old museum building. We've got at least 2, if not 3 parties interested in what I've been told. So I think it's not gonna be real difficult to sell that building. We also need, talking to Mike yesterday about it, we need to engage an appraiser, it has to be a commercial appraiser, relatively soon. So we get an idea of what the building is worth, from an appraisal standpoint, and decide what we want for it and let the interested parties know what we're looking for.
Do we have
So-
to do that legally, or can't just have Mike
He's
give
not,
us
Because it's a commercial property, right, he's an assessor, not an appraiser, but because it's a commercial property, it has to be a commercial appraiser. There's 2 in the county, one in Ogdensburg, I think one in Potsdam. So what I'd like to do, I don't know if you need a motion to do this, I would just like to ask Mike to get quotes from the 2 commercial appraisers, what an appraisal would cost, then you can decide on that next month.
We need to approve the flooring first.
Yeah, I'd like, yes.
We have a first and a second.
We have a motion in a second, or not? Yeah, we did,
Yes.
okay.
So where's, again,
We would take it from fund balance for right now, and we'll replace that when we sell the building.
Basically, the tile in the center area is gonna stay, the rest is gonna be carpet squares. That's what it is.
Yeah, carpet tiles, yeah.
Carpet tiles, wood on the edge, placed in the middle. That way, if there is an issue with one tile, you can pick it up just about on that
perfect,
place.
good.
It's just about all painted. We took a tour last week.
We met there last week, Steve and Sam and I, and the museum board. It wasn't an official meeting by any means, we didn't discuss any business, we just did a tour, so we didn't violate the open meetings law. But at just a kind of a walkthrough, and they saw the building is nearly completed. We don't have a specific time frame. That's gonna be up to Heritage Homes, and they've done a fabulous job, and again, all pro bono. It's unbelievable the work they've done there at no cost to anybody, other than their company. Of course, the building was donated by Randy Peets, as we all know. And it's phenomenal. I think the museum board was impressed with the amount of space that's available in this perimeter area. The cultural center, which is sort of this room in the middle, the main room when you come in, ends up being, I think, smaller than I thought it was gonna be. It's still adequate. But they took, if you remember the CCOM, where the teller line was, they basically put walls up where the teller line was with an archway through, so you can access the perimeter rooms. And we'll really be able to pretty much isolate those perimeter rooms when a function is there, so the museum will basically be locked down during an event there. They've installed, if you've noticed, they've installed a door in front where the old drive-through window was. There's a door there. They started working the exterior there. So now when you're in the building and you look out, you'll be able to see where the drive-through area was. That, again, I hope we're going to use some of the proceeds from the sale of the house to close that in to house the hearse that we need to move over. So you'll be able to look out that door, the glass door, and see the hearse. I think it'd be kind of neat, a neat effect. So it's really coming together really, really well. But the next step is to cover the floor. So
To go along with that, I also want to applaud Randy for his efforts. I mean, his
Absolutely.
vision, his monetary purchase of the building, and I also understand he's been over there painting as well, so.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
yeah, sorry.
I mean, he is to be commended, because he has been there whenever the painters have been there, he's like, been like the clerk of the works
Yeah,
on,
definitely, yeah.
on that job, and he's
He's
got
paid
all
down.
these great
It'll be
ideas.
a
He's got a lot of heart for that.
There's gonna be a fireplace installed, it's gonna be gorgeous when they're done, I can't wait.
Another nice part is that it's very close to the library, we own the access to there, I mean, we can hold joint functions.
And I think it'll be nice at some point down the road if we can, I mean, I'm thinking we almost establish sort of a garden walkway kind of thing, eventually connecting the two. I mean, keep the parking yeah where you need it certainly, but decorate that lot. There's a lot of things you can do in it.
Frank's saying, more work for me.
So,
Job justification.
Job just.
all right, so we have a motion and a second to authorize the expenditure up to $9,800 on flooring. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Last part of this, we're gonna need $1,700 to install the flooring, up to $1,700, hopefully less than that, but, that'll be a separate amount. A separate company. Do you have a motion for that, for that?
I guess we're about the carpet, we're gonna have it installed.
And for a diamond for $1, right? All right, we have a motion from Sam,
Second.
a second from Steve. Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else from the board?
Just some information that I'm going to advertise for summer help March 21st through March 31st.
They're already coming in.
Just so you guys are aware of it, in case somebody asks you a question. And also, right now, our spring cleanup at the transfer station is going to be May 5th, 6th, and 7th. Starting to work on that.
May 5th, 6th, 7th.
8 to 3, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 8 to noon.
From just driver's license proof.
Yep, you have to prove that, driver's license, utility bill to show that you're a town resident. You'll have to stop at the checkpoint.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we go to the last couple of public.
Well, no, the Visionaries are doing their cleanup April 23rd, so if there's anything at the museum they would like clean up, because we're going to be focusing on the theater a little bit more,
Okay.
but if there's anything there,
You just reminded me about the cemeteries, specifically Pine Grove. You've seen the limbs over there.
Pine Grove, where's Pine Grove?
Over on
Pine Street Cemetery.
the American Club.
The big one, ours.
Oh, it is ours.
That's the only one we
That's an
got.
active,
What is, okay.
Doesn't mean you can't clean it up, it's just not ours.
Yeah,
Right, well, yeah, we're going to be focused.
second.
Motion and a second. I don't expect any more afterwards, right? I don't think so. If I do all that report. Okay, good, thank you.
One quick thing, next town board, or next hospital board meeting is on the 21st.
Yep. I'll be 4 or 5 days post, I'll be there.